as much about the instrumentation as the actual science, right? So how much of an electronics background is useful?
Sometimes. So if you're going to do it, so I have no formal electronics background, but my thesis advisor, Rich Bradley, was an electrical engineer, not an astronomer. So I actually, what I needed, I kind of picked up as I went on that project. The radio astronomy is changing. The more that they're building bigger observatories, the more accessible the data is going to be to people in astronomy who don't have a radio astronomy background. So ALMA in Chile and these SKA pathfinders like Meerkat and the SKA itself, I think they're moving towards a model where the data will be already more easily accessible by any astronomer who wants to include radio data in their science questions. So if they care about galaxy evolution, they're an expert in galaxy evolution, they don't necessarily need to know the details of the instrumentation of the telescope they're using.
So it's going to be already reduced, sort of like using survey data or something.
Right, exactly. Already reduced, not that much more left to do to it. Another project I'm peripherally involved in is the Very Large Array Sky Survey, which is surveying the sky with the upgraded Very Large Array. And there will be data products of different types. There'll be raw data, but then there'll also be, already cleaned image data that people can use at different levels. So to use radio astronomy data, you don't necessarily need to have that kind of background. If you are interested in developing and building and working at these observatories, then you do need more of a background. Like I said, I didn't quite have a formal background in it, and it turned out I was really, really terrible at building things. So after I destroyed a few circuit boards, they didn't let me solder anymore. They didn't let me do any of the precision soldering anymore.
Right.
But I could do big. Let me tell you, I wanted to write an entire chapter on rolling cable in the desert, because that's what I did in the crew for like 3 days straight. Was roll out cable, coax, and connect coax to the one end of the telescope to the. I spent like 3 days.
There's a whole technique to that nobody teaches you.
Dude, I got so good at creating my own little like roller thing because we had like nothing. We had like no equipment. I made my own like roller. Anyway, I have a picture of it somewhere. It's so silly. But no, they didn't let me write a chapter about that. I was very sad. They're like, that's not science. That's just you doing stuff in the desert.
That's not science. That's engineering. Yeah.
That's engineering. It's not even precision engineering. It's super helpful. Now that I teach, I actually do have some engineering physics majors that go on to do engineering programs. I love telling them all the stories of the ridiculous things we did and tried, because that's what they are going to be looking forward to in their careers as mechanical engineers. They more of that, testing and guessing and, calculating the failure of some beam of wood before you stick a spool of cable on it.
Right. Yeah.
So it's nice that even though I definitely don't have expertise in that, I got my feet wet in that. So I encourage everyone to try it in grad school, at least for a little while, just to try out instrumentation if it's available to you. And you might decide you hate it and this is terrible and you don't want to do it.
I raised the subject because with SKE being built here, they are SKE are employing an enormous number of graduates and engineers and technicians and computer science people and so on. So it's I think it's definitely an area to focus on over here.
And some of the work isn't going to be glamorous. And that's typically the work that they are going to hand down to students, like, rolling out cable. But you learn something interesting out of it. And I'm really, really excited about how, again, I don't have super close ties to the project anymore, but I'm really excited how the SKA is creating those opportunities in South Africa. And in Southern Africa in general, because the array is going to extend, I think, further out of South Africa. It's going to extend north a little bit.
Even going to be on a few islands, if I understand correctly.
Yeah. So this is a really exciting time for students there to kind of get involved in something as it's starting. It takes a long time for these projects to be fully realized. But once you see it in action, even if it's a decade later, it's like, wow, that was incredible that we pulled that off, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, listen, this has been great. I think we have taken up all of our time now. Okay. Is there anything you want to promote or
oh boy.
Or otherwise, just if people want to talk to you, are you willing to share some details there? Yeah, okay. So how can people reach you?
So I am on Twitter as Noisy Astronomer. It is somewhat a play on the fact that I did radio astronomy. So, you know, if you get your noise in your signal, that's, you know, your noisy data.
Right.
But also because I'm from New York City, and people from New York City tend to be really loud. And more than a few times in my career, I've had someone in the next office be like, "Will you please just stop yelling all the time?" Like, I'm super loud. So the noisy kind of plays off both of those. I have a blog. I don't use it. So really it's just on Twitter. You can say hi. I will be posting I do have a YouTube channel, which I haven't used most in years. That's where I used to do a lot of the Cosmoquest hangouts and video stuff. But I am working on, I'm recording my lectures for Astronomy 101 for my students. And I'm taking great pains to make them all full of images that are Creative Commons or public domain so that I can put them on YouTube. So my Astronomy 101 videos will end up on YouTube very soon. I think I've got like the first half of them done already. So I'm going to start putting those out. But, you know, Noisy Astronomer on Twitter is probably a good place to find me and where I'm doing all that fun stuff.
That is great. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much. This was super great.
Scopex, the largest telescope and astronomy expo in South Africa, probably all of Africa, starts in less than a month on 15 September 2018. As usual, it will be held at the Museum of Military History in Saxonwold, Johannesburg. The museum does charge a fee to let you in, which is 40 Rand for adults, 30 Rand for school learners and students, and 20 Rand for pensioners. Once you're in the door, you have the opportunity to buy raffle tickets for various sponsored prizes, including a Canon EOS 7D Mark II kit and one of 4 telescopes. Scopex started as a place where students of the telescope making class could show off their hard work, but has grown over the years into a full-fledged science and astronomy show. We have public lectures in the auditorium, science education workshops, robotics, a planetarium, an astrophotography competition, and commercial stands where you can buy your own telescope. And of course, there will be a lawn filled with homemade telescopes that the makers would like to show off. The day ends with a star party on the museum lawn, and if you haven't looked through a telescope in a while, or if you've never had the chance, I highly recommend coming along. Astronomers are extremely warm and friendly folk who are always keen to share their hobby and let newcomers have a look. So that's September 15, starting at 9 a.m. and running into the night. I'll be there as always, and I hope to see you too. So that's everything for this episode. Thank you so much for listening, and if you enjoyed the show and would like to share it with friends or family, you should direct them to www.urban-astronomer.com. They will be able to play through the archives and will find the subscribe links for whichever platform they normally use to listen to podcasts. Or they can just search for Urban Astronomer on iTunes or Google Podcasts or Stitcher or pretty much any other podcast directory that you can think of. If you know of any services that don't have me listed, let me know. I'll take care of it. If you'd like to leave a rating or review on any of these platforms, that would be a great help to push me up the rankings and help new listeners to find the show. If, on the other hand, you want to offer something more concrete, you could always pledge a few dollars on my Patreon account. I don't have a huge number of patrons on there, which is fine, since my expenses are quite low. But if you'd like to join them, head on over to patreon.com/Urban Astronomer Podcast, or just click the Patreon link on urban-astronomer.com. If you'd like to hear more from me besides what's on the podcast, well, I am on Twitter @UAstronomer, and we have that's the letter U Astronomer, and we have a Facebook page at facebook.com/Urban Astronomer. And if you'd like to reach out to me, ask questions or correct mistakes, you can mail me at podcast@urban-astronomer.com, or just leave a comment on the show notes page. Next week, we'll pick up on our story of our supernova, seeing what happens when a star leaves the main sequence stage of its evolution, and we'll feature an interview with Jean-Pierre Grooterd from SSVI, a European group whose name translates into English as Stars Shine for Everyone. SSVI have donated a pair of telescopes to us at Scopex to distribute to schools or outreach groups that can make good use of them. They'll be presented at Scopex next month. So until next episode, remember to look up, remember to subscribe so you'll never miss an episode, and I hope you have clear skies. Cheerio.